On the 18th of March, Iran's Revolutionary Guard released a target list on state media, and that list changed everything. 6 energy facilities, 3 countries, one deadline measured in hours. And then, almost exactly as warned, the missiles and drones started landing. What most people still do not understand is this. Iran is not only hitting infrastructure, it is hitting the global energy nervous system. And the real damage is not just what exploded last night, but what may stay offline for years. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what Iran hit, which American companies are exposed, and why the economic fallout from the last 72 hours may outlast this war by half a decade. Before we go deeper, make sure you subscribe and like the video, because this situation is changing fast, and the next move could hit the global market even harder. This all started with an Israeli strike that crossed a line almost nobody expected. On March 18th, Israel launched strikes on Iran's South Pars gas field, the largest natural gas reserve on the planet, shared between Iran and Qatar. Israeli jets hit 4 gas treatment facilities in southern Iran. 2 refineries, with a combined daily output of 100 million cubic meters, went dark. And once that happened, the response was no longer unpredictable. It was inevitable. The IRGC released its target list within hours, publicly, on state media, with a clear message. Evacuate these facilities immediately, because they will be struck in the coming hours. That was not a threat in the shadows. That was a public countdown. Then Iran delivered on that promise. And the first major target to absorb serious damage was Ras Laffan Industrial City in Qatar, about 80 kilometers northeast of Doha. This is the largest liquefied natural gas production complex on Earth. It handles roughly 20% of the world's entire LNG supply. So when a missile gets through here, the impact is not local. It becomes global. 5 Iranian missiles were launched at the facility. Qatari defenses intercepted 4. 1 got through, and that one missile triggered fires across the site, destroying components that cannot be replaced quickly. Qatar Energy's CEO, Saad Al-Kaabi, spoke to Reuters just hours ago, and his assessment was devastating. 2 of Qatar's 14 LNG trains are wrecked. 1 gas-to-liquids facility is gone. The specific equipment destroyed included the cold boxes, the cooling systems that turn natural gas into liquid for transport. Without cold boxes, the gas cannot be processed, cannot be shipped, and cannot be sold. Al-Kaabi put a number on the damage. 17% of Qatar's LNG export capacity has been erased. Not delayed, not reduced, erased. That is 12.8 million tons per year taken offline, with an estimated $20 billion in annual revenue gone. And here is the number that should make every energy trader, every insurer, and every government official sit up straight. He said repairs will take 3 to 5 years. This facility cost $26 billion to build. The cold boxes are gone. This is not a maintenance issue. This is a multi-year reconstruction project. And that reconstruction cannot even begin properly until the site is secure and workers can return. All 10,000 workers were evacuated on day 3 of the war. None have returned. That means the clock is not just ticking on repairs, it is ticking on the entire LNG supply chain. But what most people are missing, and what we need to come back to later, is who actually sits inside this damage zone. Because Qatar Energy's expansion partners include ExxonMobil and ConocoPhillips. According to Rystad Energy, roughly 2/3 of ExxonMobil's global LNG equity volumes are concentrated in Qatar. So when Iran struck Ras Laffan, it did not just damage Qatari sovereign infrastructure. It punched directly through one of ExxonMobil's most important LNG positions on the planet. ExxonMobil declined to comment. ConocoPhillips said it remains committed to the partnership. That sounds calm, but in reality it means the lawyers are active, the insurers are panicking, and nobody yet knows who pays for years of lost production. And Al-Kaabi also said something that should have been front-page news everywhere. He told Reuters he had warned American energy executives and the U.S. Secretary of Energy for weeks that exactly this could happen if Iranian energy facilities were hit. His message was simple. If you strike our side will not stay quiet. He said he was warning them that it could be detrimental to all of us. The warning was there. The response came anyway. The U.S. Department of Energy referred questions to the White House. The White House said nothing. Then the facility was hit. That silence matters because it suggests this was not a surprise to everyone involved. Most people are told this war is about nuclear weapons, regime change, or deterrence. In reality, the immediate consequence of this conflict is the systematic destruction of American energy investments across the Gulf by an adversary that cannot beat U.S. air power head-on, but can still make Washington pay in dollars instead of blood. And now stay with me, because what Iran struck next changes the equation for global oil supply even more, and almost nobody is covering it with the seriousness it deserves. On March 19th, an Iranian drone hit the Samref refinery in Yanbu, Saudi Arabia. The Saudi Defense Ministry confirmed it. A ballistic missile aimed at the Yanbu port itself was intercepted, and crude loadings at the port were temporarily halted. The physical damage was described as minimal, but the strategic damage is enormous. Here is why. When Iran effectively closed the Strait of Hormuz at the start of this war, it severed the primary route for every barrel leaving the Gulf. Saudi Arabia responded by pushing crude west through its 750-mile east-west pipeline, which runs from the eastern oil fields across the desert to the Red Sea port at Yanbu. Before the war, Yanbu handled around 1 to 1.5 million barrels a day. By March 9th, the International Energy Agency reported that pipeline throughput had surged to 5.9 million barrels a day. That means Yanbu became the last open door for Gulf crude. Every tanker, every buyer, every refinery in Asia and Europe that still wanted Saudi oil had one address: Yanbu. And Iran just put a drone through the roof of the refinery sitting next to it. That is the point. It is not just about damage. It is about proving that the fallback route is also vulnerable. Samref is a joint venture between Saudi Aramco and ExxonMobil. It has a capacity of 400,000 barrels per day and produces gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, marine fuel, and propane. Aramco and ExxonMobil had even agreed to expand it into a full integrated petrochemical complex. Now that expansion is an open question, because the only functioning crude export outlet left in the Gulf has been proven vulnerable. The fallback plan has been hit, and Iran has shown it can reach the Red Sea coast, not just the Persian Gulf. Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan al Saud responded with language diplomats almost never use. He said, Saudi patience with Iranian aggression is not unlimited. He also said, trust in Tehran has been completely shattered. That is not the language of a government managing a temporary disagreement. That is the language of a state re-evaluating an entire regional security order in real time. Now consider the UAE. On March 16th and 17th, Iranian drones struck the Shah gas field about 110 miles southwest of Abu Dhabi. A fire broke out. Operations were suspended. This is the world's largest ultra-sour gas development. It provides roughly 20% of the UAE's total gas supply and produces 4.2 million tons of granulated sulfur every year, about 5% of global output. And this is where the story expands beyond energy and into food. Sulfur is a critical raw material for phosphate fertilizer production, and major buyers, such as Morocco's OCP, depend on that supply. The Strait of Hormuz was already carrying 30 to 35% of the world's nitrogen-based fertilizer exports before the war. Fertilizer prices have climbed 30% since February 28th. This is no longer just an energy crisis. It is turning into a food security crisis. The Shah field is operated by ADNOC Sour Gas, 60% owned by Abu Dhabi's National Oil Company and 40% owned by Occidental Petroleum, another major American energy player. Again, American corporate money was sitting inside Iran's published target list. The pattern is no longer random. It is deliberate, consistent, and impossible to ignore. The UAE absorbed more than just Shah. The Habshan gas facility was shut down after intercepted missile debris fell on the site. The Bab oil field was targeted. Dubai International Airport, once the busiest in the world for international flights, was hit by Iranian drones on March 16th. A fuel tank fire broke out near the runway. Abu Dhabi briefly closed its airspace. The Fujairah oil industry zone, a critical alternative export terminal on the Arabian Sea, was also struck. The UAE Defense Ministry said it dealt with 13 ballistic missiles and 27 drones from Iran in a single wave. Behind all of this sits the Strait of Hormuz. Before February 28th, more than 100 commercial vessels transited the strait every day. According to S&P Global Market Intelligence, only 21 tankers have made it through since the war started. That is 21 in 21 days, versus more than 100 per day before. More than 400 ships are now anchored in the Gulf of Oman, waiting. At least 20 vessels have already been attacked. On March 1st, the tanker Skylight was hit off Oman's Musandam Peninsula. Reuters reported that 4 crew members were injured and the 20-person crew was evacuated. On the same day, the MKD Vam was struck by an unmanned surface vessel and its engine room exploded. 1 Indian sailor died. On March 11th, a Thai-flagged vessel was hit and caught fire. On March 12th, a China-owned ship broadcasting its Chinese ownership on its tracking system was hit with shrapnel near Jebel Ali. This is not isolated chaos. This is a growing pattern of pressure on shipping itself. Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, has declared that the strait will remain closed for the duration of the war. But the blockade is not absolute. Iran has allowed its own tankers through, exporting more than 16 million barrels since March 1st, mostly to China. Chinese-linked vessels have been given passage. India and Pakistan have negotiated limited transit rights. The blockade is selective. Western allied shipping is locked out, while everyone else negotiates at Tehran's discretion. Iran has turned the most important energy choke point on the planet into a toll gate, and it decides who pays and who passes. That is the strategic shift nobody in the market can ignore. The economic numbers are already staggering. Brent crude briefly traded above $119 on March 19th. Dubai crude, the benchmark for Asian markets, shattered records above $150 a barrel. The U.S. national average gasoline price rose to about $3.88 a gallon on March 19th. According to AOA data cited by Reuters, Gulf oil production has dropped by 10 million barrels per day since March 12th. The IEA responded with the largest emergency reserve release in its history, 400 million barrels. That sounds huge until you realize it covers only about 4 days of global consumption. The U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve holds about 415 million barrels, but even at a maximum drawdown rate, it takes time for that oil to reach markets after a presidential order, so the cushion is real, but it is not infinite. Across Asia, the damage is accelerating. The Philippines moved government workers to a 4-day week to reduce fuel consumption. Indonesia is under pressure as fuel subsidies threaten to break its 3% GDP deficit ceiling. India is scrambling to buy crude from Russia at a premium. The IMF has warned of rising inflationary pressure across the global economy. Global stock markets have already fallen 5.5% since February 28th, with Asian exchanges hit the hardest. And, while the Gulf burns, Israel is escalating on a parallel track. On March 19th, Israeli forces killed Iran's intelligence minister, Ismail Khatib, inside Iranian territory. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz confirmed the operation. 3 senior Iranian officials were killed in 24 hours. Katz said Israeli forces now operate under a standing order. If there is actionable intelligence and a confirmed target, they strike immediately, with no further authorization required. Iran's response came through Mojtaba Khamenei, who declared that every drop of blood will carry a price. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi warned of consequences beyond anyone's control. Here's the fracture that changes the direction of this conflict. Washington asked for a naval coalition to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Trump publicly named the countries he expected to join: the United Kingdom, France, Japan, South Korea, and China. Several allies initially resisted joining a U.S.-led naval effort in the strait. Japan, Greece, and Germany ruled out military operations at that stage. Britain said it did not want to be drawn into a wider war, though it later approved U.S. use of British bases for strikes on Iranian missile sites targeting ships. And this is where the entire strategic picture collapses into a single contradiction. The stated goal of this campaign was to neutralize Iran's nuclear capability and break the regime's hold on power. 3 weeks in, the nuclear facilities have been hit, senior leaders have been killed, and Iran's conventional military has taken enormous punishment. But the regime has not collapsed. A new supreme leader is in place. Retaliatory strikes have intensified, not stopped. And the price of this war is being paid not in Tehran, but in Doha, Riyadh, Abu Dhabi, London, Manila, and at every American gas station between New York and Los Angeles. Iran figured out something the war planners either underestimated or ignored. You do not need to shoot down an F-35 to win an economic war. You need a cheap drone and a $26 billion target. You need to close a 21-mile waterway and let the global oil market do the rest. You need to make the cost of continuing the war more painful than the cost of ending it. And right now, every central banker, every petroleum analyst, and every sovereign wealth fund manager on this planet is running the same calculation. Has this war already crossed the line where the economic destruction is bigger than whatever strategic gain either side is chasing? Ras Laffan, $26 billion in infrastructure. 17% of Qatar's LNG capacity removed for half a decade. Samref, the last open door for Gulf crude proven vulnerable. Shah gas field, one of Occidental's flagship assets, now dark. 21 tankers through Hormuz in 3 weeks. Brent above $100. Dubai crude at record highs. Hundreds of millions of extra dollars leaving consumers' wallets every day. The IEA's emergency release barely buying time. The UK, France, and Germany saying no. 3 Iranian officials dead in 24 hours. And Tehran hitting harder, not softer. Yet Qatar's energy minister said he warned Washington repeatedly, and Washington did not act. The cold boxes at Ras Laffan are gone. The repairs will take years. And the question nobody in Washington, Tehran, or Jerusalem has answered is simple. What does the endgame look like when the facility that feeds 20% of the world's LNG supply was destroyed after the warning signs were already there? Until someone answers that question, every American energy investment in the Gulf sits inside the same targeting envelope that Ras Laffan sat in 72 hours ago. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate your support. Join the discussion in the comments and tell me what you think. Who has the upper hand in this war? Do you think a ceasefire is coming soon? Subscribe, like, and share the video, and leave your opinion in the comments so we can hear your take. And click the next video on the screen for more updates.